Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Alex, POV. He just stood there, staring. Meanwhile, I was scrambling around my apartment, trying to make the place look somewhat presentable, as Christian Ivanov watched me with unnerving intensity. Why was he even here? This was not how I planned to spend my precious time off. "Your place is nice," he finally said. It was the first thing he'd spoken since our little argument over why he had shown up in the first place. I gave the room a quick glance and winced. There was just so much stuff. Stacks of gadgets I'd collected over the years, shelves overflowing with tech books, and an embarrassing mountain of comic books I was desperately trying to shove into my room. "Oh, come on, stop cleaning and get over here." "I don't have all day," he said sharply, breaking my panic cleaning trance. I sighed. He'd already seen the chaos. No point hiding it now. I walked over to where he sat, on my futon, of all places. He had both our laptops set up, along with several sheets of sales goals spread across the coffee table. I instinctively ran my hands through my hair, trying to smooth it down. I just felt unprepared. Christian, on the other hand, looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Crisp suit, tailored perfectly. Even his cufflinks looked expensive. He slowly removed his blazer, loosened his tie, and unbuttoned his collar. Watching someone like him relax, even slightly, in my space was strange. Seeing him on my futon felt surreal. Someone like him didn't belong within a 10-mile radius of this side of town. "Have you worked on anything these past couple of days?" he asked. I shook my head slowly. He didn't look thrilled. In my defense, my doctor told me to take it easy. The cut still needs time to heal, and the reactions left my skin inflamed. "I've got this ointment I have to wear all day. It's not exactly a confidence booster." Christian gave me a quick once-over, then seemed to accept my explanation. I was still limping slightly, and honestly, I probably looked like I'd lost a battle with a skincare experiment gone wrong. "It's fine," he finally said. "I've been working overtime to set up the idea board for the sales pitch. I want something compelling, something that locks in the partnership with Ivanov Corporation." He continued explaining his vision, expected growth, the pitch strategy, and I sat there quietly, a bit stunned. He'd clearly invested a lot of time and energy into this. I knew the deal was important, but this was different. He had a fire in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Something must have happened to make this more urgent. Why else would he come all the way across town to meet me in person? "How are we doing with the gala planning? Have we made a set list yet?" I asked. He shook his head. "I thought the numbers were more important." "Yes and no," I replied. "The gala's a key piece. If they're going to partner with us, that event will kick everything off, for them and for us. It has to shine. We need to outline the program, the events we're hosting, and highlight the A-listers we've invited. It's all part of the pitch." Christian nodded after a pause, his gaze drifting to the mug of tea in my hand. That's when I realized I hadn't even offered him anything. "Would you like some tea? Or coffee?" I asked. "Coffee would be great, thanks," he said. I limped into the kitchen. The old burner knobs took some coaxing, but eventually the flame lit and I set the kettle on. Christian, POV. I tried not to stare too much. Everything about this place, about him, was new to me. Even the futon I was sitting on. I'd heard of them before but had never actually used one. And let me tell you, it wasn't exactly ergonomic. I frowned slightly when I noticed Alex limping. Sure, the injury might have been his own doing, but still, I felt a little guilty. That was a new emotion. One I didn't usually extend to coworkers, let alone someone I barely knew. Still, his presence had helped a lot, just in the last half hour. He brought a unique perspective to the table. Creative, too. Not with his living space, clearly, but when it came to work, he didn't miss a thing. "Do you take sugar?" Alex asked, snapping me out of my thoughts. I quickly pretended to focus on my laptop screen. "Straight black is fine. Thank you." He pulled out a strange-looking glass carafe and a bowl of fresh coffee beans. I watched, a little surprised, as he began grinding the beans by hand with what looked like a ceramic pestle. It reminded me of my mother. She used to grind spices in a bowl just like that. She always preferred the old-fashioned way. Watching Alex make coffee from scratch instead of just using a machine, I don't know. It caught me off guard in a good way. Once the brewing started, the rich aroma filled the apartment. I leaned back and let the scent wrap around me. It smelled incredible. Alex, POV. I just think if we rearranged these figures a little, it would look more appealing, I said cautiously. Christian gave me one of his pointed looks. That would also make it inaccurate and misleading, I countered. He sighed and erased a few more notes on his tablet. This had basically been our routine for the past 45 minutes. It was already 9:35 p.m., and the weight of the day was beginning to catch up with me. Between the late hour and the overly strong tea, I was teetering on the edge of exhaustion. Christian had since ditched his tie, unbuttoned a few more buttons on his shirt, and rolled up his sleeves. We were both clearly losing the battle to fatigue. I tried not to stare when he rolled up his sleeve with his teeth. That was when I realized I was definitely watching too closely and needed to get a grip. "Could you help with this other sleeve?" he asked, breaking my internal scolding session. I hesitated and looked over. His brows were furrowed as he held out his other arm, clearly too tired to bother wrestling with it himself. I slid over from the side chair and joined him on the futon. The moment my fingers brushed the edge of his sleeve, I could tell the fabric was high quality. Soft, smooth, definitely expensive. Christian and I came from two very different worlds. I rolled the sleeve up to match the other, only to pause as I caught a glimpse of a tattoo near his elbow. I focused harder to keep my face neutral, but his unreadable expression and unwavering gaze didn't exactly make it easier. "All done," I said, leaning back to give him some space. Just before I could scoot away, he stopped me with a gesture. "Relax," he said casually. "You're acting like I'm about to interrogate you. Sit down." And honestly, if I were going to do anything, a few feet wouldn't really help you, Alexander Hamilton. I let out a shaky laugh and sat back down. The space I had created for emotional self-preservation was now gone. Now we were shoulder to shoulder, staring at a screen full of charts, both of us clearly running on fumes. I could almost feel my brain cells waving little white flags. It reminded me of that episode of SpongeBob where everything inside his head descends into chaos. That felt about right. Christian suddenly stood up, causing me to nearly drop a few of the pages I was holding. "Sorry, just stretching my legs," he said. I realized he hadn't gotten up once since we started this marathon work session. "No worries," I murmured, chewing absent-mindedly on the end of a pen. It was a terrible habit, but it helped me focus when I was tired. The tea was really kicking in now. Or maybe it was just the overwhelming stress of the day. I glanced up and saw Christian browsing my bookshelf. "This is interesting. You own the Hamilton script in book form?" he called out. My eyebrows furrowed. I didn't remember ever buying that. It must have been a gift from Derek. But the moment Christian opened it, everything clicked into place. It wasn't a script. It was a hollowed-out book with a small pouch inside. Alex?" Christian lifted the pouch and looked at me with a raised brow. I blinked, completely caught off guard. Of course. Leave it to Derek to hide something weird in my apartment without telling me. He always joked that he'd get me to try new things, but I'd never taken him seriously. This wasn't even mine, but none of that mattered. What mattered was that my boss had just discovered it. In my living room. "This isn't what it looks like," I said quickly, scrambling to stand and reach for the book, but Christian pulled it out of reach, smirking. "I didn't have you figured for someone with secret compartments in their books," he said teasingly. "Neither did I muttered under my breath. Christian returned to the futon, still holding the book like it was a treasure he'd uncovered. "I think I'll have to hold on to this for safekeeping," he said, clearly amused. I dropped my head into my hands. This couldn't be happening. There was no way I was making it out of this without consequences, right? It looked bad even if I had nothing to do with it. Christian paused, watching me spiral, then casually asked, "You got a flashlight? I think there's more weird stuff hidden in here." "Christian, POV. I don't know if this is such a good idea, Alex said with hesitation as I lit the scented herbal stick. He looked at it like it was about to summon a curse or demand a blood oath. The expression on his face was a mix of worry and dread, which made me chuckle. Especially after the whole camping disaster, he added, I don't think my body's even fully recovered yet. Relax, kid, I said, amused. Have you really never tried anything like this before? It's not that I haven't, he replied cautiously. It's more about what happened after I did. Now that got my attention. What exactly happened? I mean, I didn't think it was dangerous or anything. But the one time I tried, things got a little chaotic, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I raised an eyebrow. He grinned slightly. Derek came over to celebrate after I got the job at Ivanov Corporation. He brought snacks, turned on a game, and before I knew it, we were just unwinding. Then he got a call. Apparently his girlfriend found something that didn't belong to her at their place. Let's just say he had to leave fast. I held back a laugh. I was already out of it by then, Alex continued. And for some reason, I thought it was a brilliant idea to go explore the rooftop of my apartment. There's this incredible view of the city up there. But there's a catch. If you don't prop the door open, it locks behind you. I already saw where this was going. Yep, he said with a sigh. I got locked out. Spent the entire night up there. The maintenance guy found me the next morning. I couldn't help but grin. It reminded me of some of the stunts my brother Brad and I used to pull. During our first year of college, we once drove our brand new car straight into a decorative hedge sculpture on campus. The dean found out. Called our mom. That woman showed up in rollers and a robe, yelling loud enough to shake the science building. We never lived it down. Everyone called us hedge funds from that day forward. No one even knew Brad and I were brothers. They just thought we were chaotic best friends. Brad eventually went to law school and became the golden child. Ivanov Corp even brought him on as a private attorney. I took the other route, and somehow ended up running this circus of a company. The first puff of the herbal blend helped me relax. I leaned back on the futon, letting my thoughts quiet. Alex looked unsure but eventually took it with cautious fingers. He tried, really tried, but the moment he exhaled, he burst into a coughing fit. Easy there, I said, patting his back as he reached for a drink. Later, Alex was mid-story again, animatedly ranting about a time Derek asked him to fix his computer because of something embarrassing he'd been caught doing online. I just think it's rude, Alex said, voice rising in disbelief. Asking someone to fix your computer because you messed it up? No respect. No boundaries. He was clearly tipsy now, his words slightly slurred, his cheeks flushed. But honestly, I didn't mind. I liked seeing him like this. More relaxed. More open. Whenever we worked together, he always looked like he was walking on eggshells around me. I guess I hadn't done much to earn anyone's trust in that department. Brad would say I've always had a temper. And to be fair, he had seen me shatter a laptop just last month. As Alex's story wound down, I noticed his eyes growing heavier. The clock on the table now read close to 1 a.m. Somehow, time had flown by. Is it bedtime? He mumbled, sinking further into the futon. The adult in me kicked in. That couch was not built for sleeping. His spine would be furious tomorrow. Most definitely, I said, reaching to gather the scattered papers. He made a half-hearted attempt to help, but I gently pushed his hand away. Let's get you to bed. But it's so far, he whined, dragging the words out dramatically. I looked around his tiny apartment. Right? I laughed, helping him up. He led the way down the narrow hallway, swaying slightly but managing to stay upright. Once inside, I was surprised by how clean and cozy his room was. The place had a modest, almost minimalist charm, even if the appliances were a bit outdated. As soon as his legs touched the edge of the bed, Alex collapsed into it. You all good? I asked. He gave a small nod, his face already half buried in a pillow. All right, good night, I said, reaching for the light switch. But before I could leave, he suddenly sat up a little. Wait, you're heading out? His voice was muffled, his expression a bit pleading. He blinked up at me, eyes glossy and tired. I hesitated. Did I want to drive home this late? Honestly, no. I looked at the bed. It was definitely big enough for two. And it looked really comfortable. Just a few hours, I told myself. Just a few hours. Alex POV. Another one, sir? Jerome, my butler, asked, his voice calm and soothing as I stretched out on the warm white sands of a breathtaking beach. The sun's golden heat enveloped my skin like a cozy blanket. It was perfection. Yes, please. Don't mind if I do, I replied with a relaxed sigh, accepting the drink from his hand. A gentle breeze brushed against my open button-down shirt, sending a shiver of delight through me. Aren't you going to get that? Jerome suddenly asked. His voice sounded different. Sharper. Familiar, but not in the way it should have been. Get what? I mumbled, eyes still closed. That. What? I asked again, pulling my sunglasses down to take a proper look at him, only to realize he was no longer Jerome. Those weren't Jerome's warm brown eyes. They were icy blue, staring down at me. That, he shouted. I bolted upright in bed. Gone was the beach in Bora Bora. In its place, the cluttered, dim-lit corner of my one-bedroom apartment. My alarm clock blared from the nightstand. My head throbbed like a blender was spinning full speed in my skull. Light from the window stabbed at my vision. Really should have bought blackout curtains. Then I heard a groan. An arm pulled tighter around my waist. Alex, if you don't turn off that alarm, I swear I will toss both you and that thing out the window. I froze. That voice wasn't from my dream. I scrambled out of bed so fast, I smacked my head on the corner of the nightstand and landed hard on the floor. As I sat up, dazed and disoriented, I turned toward the bed. Holy, what is happening? I stammered. Christian Ivanov lay in my bed, shirtless and clearly still half asleep. His messy hair somehow looked model perfect. His eyes were half-lidded with exhaustion. And the way the sheets fell, revealing just enough of his tattooed chest, made my brain short-circuit. I looked away quickly, face burning. What are you doing in my bed? You don't remember? He asked, propping himself up on one arm. The sheets fell even lower. I looked anywhere but at him. You had way too much to drink, he continued casually, and a little too much. Let's just say you weren't exactly in your clearest state of mind. My heart pounded. Oh no. No. You led me to your bedroom. My soul left my body and asked me to stay the night. Lord above, please come get me now. I wouldn't. You passed out right after. Meanwhile, I barely slept because someone flails in their sleep like they're reenacting an ancient warrior battle. I'm billing you for emotional damage. I stared at him, trying not to stare too much. So, we didn't? I asked cautiously. Didn't what? His tone darkened slightly, and it sent a chill up my spine. Never mind. What time is it? He reached for his phone, patting the bed until he found it under a pillow. No clue. It's dead. Check your alarm clock, if it survived. I looked over. The clock was lying on the floor next to the nightstand, reading 8:32 a.m. That reminded me, my forehead was throbbing. I reached up, touched something wet, and looked at my hand. Blood. Christian POV. Hold still, I said firmly. It hurts, Alex complained. That's what you get for waking up like that, I replied, trying to suppress a grin. I dabbed the cotton with rubbing alcohol again and pressed it gently against the cut on his forehead. While tending to the wound, I caught his eyes for a brief moment. He still wasn't wearing his glasses. The irritation from his allergic reaction was almost gone, and without the specs, I could see more of him. His face was red, but not from the injury. I liked how flustered he got around me, but I also missed the version of him from last night. After he'd passed out, I had tried to sleep, but he was tossing and turning, and at one point he full-on slapped me in the face. Eventually, I gave up and wrapped my arms around him from behind. He calmed instantly, and a few minutes later, he nuzzled closer. My grip on the gauze tightened at the memory. Before I could get lost in that moment again, the front door slammed open. Alex, get up, you're going to be la. A woman's voice rang out through the apartment as she barged in. She froze when she saw us. I was standing between Alex's knees at the kitchen counter, holding the first aid kit, while he sat awkwardly still. Her eyes widened in shock. "Oh, she gasped, dropping her purse to the floor. And just like that, things went from complicated to really complicated. Alex's POV. "Joan," I said hesitantly. "Shh, don't. I'm still trying to process everything," she snapped. "There's nothing to process." I insisted. She just gave me a sharp look and silenced me again. There was a long, awkward pause. I started to worry, had I just broken Joan? After a while, she finally asked, "How long?" "How long what?" I replied. She looked me straight in the eyes. "How long have you two been involved?" I choked mid-sip and practically sprayed orange juice across the room. 19 minutes earlier. Oh. Joan's purse hit the floor with a thud. I froze like a deer in headlights. Her face was unreadable, except for the slight lift of her brow as her eyes scanned Christian, who was halfway through buttoning up his shirt. She bent down, slowly picked up her purse, and backed out of my apartment like she just walked into a horror film. "I'm going to wait outside." "Right outside? That's where I'll be," she muttered and closed the door behind her. "Great," I sighed under my breath. This was going to be hard to explain. When I turned to Christian, he was grinning like he was in on the joke. "Your friend's got good comedic timing. At least one of you is dedicated enough to be up early for work. Let me finish getting dressed and we'll grab coffee on the way in," he said. "No," I blurted out a little too quickly. He gave me a confused look, like he didn't understand the concept of someone telling him no. "I mean, you can grab the coffee and I'll meet you at the office." Crowds in the morning? Not my thing. "Actually," he said, adjusting his collar, "I meant you can grab mine while I wait in the car. Coffee shops during rush hour? Too chaotic. I prefer to avoid places that scream ordinary." This guy. I almost rolled my eyes but caught myself just in time. "Just go ahead. I'll bring the coffee," I told him. After a brief pause, he nodded. He got dressed quickly and even offered to help clean up the paperwork we left out from the night before. I declined. What I really needed was for Christian Ivanov to leave. It still took 15 minutes to get him out the door. He kept complaining about mystery bruises I had allegedly caused and was searching for a missing shoe. "Don't forget," he said as he left, "large coffee, 2 sugars and 1 creamer." "Got it," I finished for him. He had just excited when he passed someone in the hallway. "Nice seeing you, Janice." He nodded politely to Joan. Joan's face went from confused to annoyed, but she held it in and gave him a curt nod. The moment Christian disappeared, Joan stormed in like a whirlwind, bumping into me so hard I nearly crashed into the coffee table. I blinked. When did my apartment become a community center? And that's how we ended up here. Joan perched on my futon while I stood in a puddle of orange juice, looking ridiculous. "What the heck, Joan?" That is not what's happening," I protested. "Sure. Tell that to anyone who walks in on the two of you like that." There was no compromising position. He was shirtless. In your kitchen. His shirt was just unbuttoned. He was getting dressed, I argued. She raised a brow and smirked. "Makes me wonder what exactly got him undressed in the first place." I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. I hit my head falling out of bed. He was just helping me clean the cut. But Joan wasn't ready to let it go. I mean, who knew Christian Ivanov was hiding that under his button-ups? Talk about Hercules. Or should I say, hunkules? Woohoo, I'd love to make some sweet. Okay, that's enough. I cut her off before she could finish quoting Disney's Hercules. She burst out laughing, then set her things aside and helped me organize the papers. That's what I love about Joan. She could catch me in the most awkward situation and still help me clean up the mess, judgment-free. And honestly, that's rare. I wouldn't trade that for the world. Christian's POV. "I've been calling and texting you all morning," Brad snapped the second my office door shut. I hadn't even looked at my phone until I got to the building. I barely made it to my office before I was whisked away to our first meeting. "We made it to all 3 meetings, didn't we?" I replied coolly. "Yes, but you forgot breakfast with Mom." That one hit. I completely blanked on it. When was I supposed to wake up for that? I muttered. If I had slept at my usual time, I could have handled both, but a late night with Alex outweighed an early morning with my mother any day. My eyes drifted toward the door. I wondered how Alex was doing, especially after that fall. Are you even listening to me? Brad asked, annoyed. Yes, I lied. Mom wants to have dinner with you next week, before your trip. She says she hasn't seen you in a while. She was literally just here, I blurted. Tell that to her. She says she wants to see you no matter what. Also, she mentioned bringing your new assistant. Alex POV. Oh, so you two definitely had a moment, huh? Derek blurted out the second I stepped off the elevator onto the 3rd floor. I gave Joan a sharp look. What happened to our "this stays between us" agreement? I asked, narrowing my eyes. Joan shrugged casually. When you said us, I thought you meant you, me, and Derek. I sighed and rubbed the bridge of my nose. If Derek knew, that meant the entire floor knew. The guy didn't understand the concept of discretion. For the record, I said firmly, we did not have a moment. He just stayed over because it was late. That's it. Now, can we please never say that phrase again? They both gave me a nod, but something about it wasn't exactly convincing. I had barely made it to the employee check-in station when my phone buzzed in my pocket. A message lit up the screen, from an unknown number. Unknown, where are you? I stared at the message for what felt like forever, trying to place the number. Eventually, I gave up and texted back. Who's this? A reply came instantly. Unknown. The person impatiently waiting for the files you promised to have on my desk this morning. Also known as your boss. I groaned. After Christian had shown up at my place, it made sense that he had access to my personal info, including my phone number. So this text wasn't exactly shocking. Just exhausting. I'd hoped to spend my break napping in my car. But nope. Another message buzzed through. No, I got you, Eddie Chang. My eyes widened. That sneaky man. I just want to make this very clear, I announced the moment I stepped into Christian's office. I'm only here for the Eddie Chang. He smirked, clearly pleased with himself. Our trip to Mavericks Corp is in less than a week, he reminded me, unpacking the takeout boxes. The smell of Chinese food filled the room. I kept forgetting he was serious about bringing me on this business trip. Part of me was excited, a whole new level of business and marketing. But another part of me? Completely terrified. Earlier today, I had watched clips of his morning conference uploaded to the company intranet. Seeing Christian in action gave me goosebumps. He had this dangerous air of confidence, like he could run the company into the ground and walk away without blinking. Today could mean billions. Tomorrow could mean unemployment. That's just how he operated. High risk, high reward. Being close to him made it obvious how qualified he was for this job. But the way he sometimes tossed logic out the window when even mildly frustrated? That part worried everyone, including me. And I thought I was dramatic. I think we're ready for whatever Mavericks throws at us, I said, trying to sound confident. Truthfully, I was lying straight through my teeth. One wrong word, and Christian could lose his cool. We can't afford mistakes this time, he replied, his voice low and serious. Something in his tone felt heavier than usual. For just a second, I caught a glimpse of doubt in his expression, and I didn't know what to make of it. You did book us a nice hotel, right? He added casually. Could use a good spa day before the chaos hits. I froze, then smiled like everything was fine. Booked a hotel? Wait, what? I completely forgot that I was actually his assistant, and that kind of thing was literally my job. Top-tier hotel, I lied smoothly. I hadn't even looked at flights yet. Christian took a bite of the noodles as I laid out the documents we had reviewed last night. Between you and me, Eddie Chang is amazing, he mumbled, still chewing. I haven't spent this little on food in a long time. Must be nice, I thought, watching him enjoy every bite. I was thinking we could stay an extra day in New York after the conference, Christian added between spoonfuls. There are a few things I need to take care of, and also, don't make plans Sunday night. Sunday? I asked. Wait, are we working the weekend too? My mom wants to see me, and strangely, she asked for you to be there too. I stared at him, speechless. I mean, obviously, he had a mom. But the idea of meeting the woman who raised Christian? Terrifying. Call me dramatic, but it felt like walking into a trap. You look like I just told you your days are numbered, Christian said with a laugh, taking another bite. I forced a smile as I finally opened a new tab to look up flights. Something told me he might not be that far off. Christian POV. I wonder what Mom has planned for us tonight, Brad said as he adjusted his tie in the mirror of my bathroom. He'd decided to get ready at my place for some reason. I didn't question it. Honestly, it felt good to have him around, like back in college when we were roommates. These days, I mostly saw Brad in full-on professional mode. I missed the old version of him, the one who'd never wear a tie and lived for wild nights out. He was definitely more fun back then. I don't get why she suddenly wants to meet Alex. She's never cared about any of my previous assistants. Ironically, neither did you, Brad replied, smirking. I don't know if you've noticed, but Alex is already in the running for the longest assistant you've had. Even I'm curious. I hadn't thought about it before, but he was right. Technically, Alex was doing 2 jobs now, so I'd eased up on the load compared to past assistants. But more than that, there was just something about him. He wasn't afraid to challenge me, and that kept things interesting. Half of those assistants were handpicked by Mom, I reminded him. Yeah, and half of them didn't have a single original thought. They followed every instruction without question. Isn't that kind of the point of being an assistant? Brad asked while styling his hair. He always went all out whenever we were going to see my mother. If it were up to me, I'd wear sweatpants, but the slight fear of her wrath kept me from testing that theory. Knowing her, she'd find a creative way to make me regret it. So, I settled for a nice sweater and dress pants. I could have told some of them to jump off a cliff, and they'd probably do it. I want someone with pushback. Someone who can challenge ideas, not just nod and smile. Someone who keeps you grounded, Brad teased. I gave him a look. He wasn't wrong, but I wasn't about to admit that. I am grounded. Head of the company, remember? He rolled his eyes. Brad knew I never wanted this job in the first place. If it were up to me, I'd be on a beach somewhere sipping something cold and fruity, without a care in the world. But things had changed. Somewhere along the line, the company had grown on me. I'd poured way too many sleepless nights into building it up. I wasn't about to throw that all away. Also, the paychecks didn't hurt. I want someone who actually cares about what we're building here. Someone with ideas, initiative, and Alex has that. I said. Brad gave me a weird look. What? I asked. I'm just not used to hearing thoughtful things come out of your mouth. Give me a second to adjust. I tossed a shoe at him. He dodged it, laughing. Childish, I muttered. Immature, he fired back. Alex POV. I was so nervous. It took me 5 tries just to unlock the door for Christian. For goodness sake, Alex. It's a doorknob, not a secret puzzle, Christian said as he stepped inside. My hands were sweaty, and my nerves were all over the place. He paused to look at me. You look good, he nodded. Just a bit pale. Relax, we won't stay longer than an hour. I don't really want to see her either. His words were oddly comforting. I managed to smile. Let's get this over with. When we stepped outside, my jaw practically hit the pavement. Until now, I'd only ever seen Christian use the company cars. But this? A convertible that looked straight out of a movie. It was sleek, expensive looking, and absolutely stunning. This is wow. Just wow. Stop gawking and get in. The sooner we get there, the sooner we're out. Christian's driving could make anyone pray. I wasn't sure where we were headed, but we were getting there fast. As the scenery changed, I realized we were leaving the city. The houses got bigger and further apart. Finally, we turned down a private road that led to a huge gate. I noticed the security cameras zooming in on us before the gate slowly opened. I was still recovering from the shock when the house came into view. Christian? Yes. This place is bigger than the White House. He chuckled. Stop being dramatic. Stop being rich. That made him laugh out loud. We pulled up to the front entrance where a man in a tailored uniform was already waiting. Good evening, sir, The man greeted Christian with a nod. Hey, Steve. Take good care of her, will ya? Christian tossed him the keys. Steve gave him a smile. Always a pleasure, sir. Good luck tonight. He nodded at both of us and walked around to the driver's side. I wasn't sure what was more concerning, the fact that the valet said good luck, or the fact that this place had a valet. You have a valet? I don't. My mother does, Christian replied. And hey, tone down the sailor talk, all right? Let's not give her a reason to dislike you. Alex POV. I fidgeted with the hem of my sweater, nerves bouncing around in my chest as I waited. For something. Anything. So far, Christian, Brad, and I had been sitting in this massive, high-ceilinged lounge for over 10 minutes. Still no sign of Christian's mother. From the looks on both their faces, neither of them seemed sure when she'd actually arrive. To be honest, I wasn't even certain why Brad was here. The whole thing felt more like a business meeting than a family dinner. Of course she'd keep us waiting this long, Christian muttered under his breath, his voice low and careful. A moment later, a new voice cut clean through the room. I finally get to meet the one who managed to keep my son in check, a woman announced as she entered. My eyes automatically trailed from the sound of her heels clicking across the marble floor all the way up to her face. Her shoes alone looked like they could fund a small country. I didn't know much about women's fashion, but even I recognized those signature red bottoms. The heels were higher than my GPA, my confidence, and possibly even Uncle Earl during the holidays. She wore a sleek black skirt with a matching blazer over a stunning white blouse, elegant ruffles perfectly framed by a strand of pearls around her neck. When my eyes finally reached hers, I nearly forgot how to breathe. She was breathtaking, runway-level beautiful. The kind of person who could star in a commercial and make you pause mid-scroll just to stare. Her eyes were as sharp as Christian's, but her hair was dark like Brad's. I got so lost in her presence, I barely registered her next words. It's a pleasure to meet you, Alexander Hamilton. My apologies for the delay, she said politely, then finally acknowledged Brad and Christian. My name is Oksana Ivanov, but you may call me Anna. She stepped closer and extended her hand toward me. Her accent was soft but distinctive, possibly Russian or Ukrainian. I took her hand quickly, realizing too late my palms were sweaty. Hi. Sorry, my hands are I stammered, but she smiled and gave my hand a confident squeeze before letting go. Her smile softened her features. I imagine these boys have painted quite the picture of me. Please don't be alarmed, I promise I don't bite. That made me relax a little. But there was still something about her, a presence that made it hard to tell what was sincere and what was calculated. Brad approached first. He leaned down awkwardly, and I realized why when Anna rose onto her toes to kiss his forehead. Then Christian stepped forward. The first thing she did was straighten the collar of his shirt. It was a tiny gesture, but it made both Brad and I glance down at our own clothes, suddenly aware of every wrinkle. Christian leaned down gracefully, allowing her to kiss his forehead too. She barely reached his chin even with those towering heels, he had nearly a foot on her. I'm glad you and your wrinkled sweater could make it, she said to Christian, her tone layered with elegance and subtle judgment. It doesn't take long to steam a shirt, you know. Something told me she had never steamed a shirt in her life. It was either this or my AC/DC, Christian quipped. You should have gone with that, she replied dryly. If you're going to commit to looking like a mess, at least go all in. I wasn't sure if this was just their style of banter, or if Christian was using every ounce of self-control to not lose his patience. His expression didn't give much away. Enough of this small talk. Let's eat, she said, turning and leading us through the largest living room I'd ever seen, into what had to be the most impressive dining hall I'd ever stepped into. The table was set for 12. There were only 4 of us. Were this just how rich people lived? Did they always use extra plates, just because they could? In my house, we mostly used paper plates. Less cleanup. Something told me Anna hadn't washed a dish in years. As I took in the extravagant table setting, Anna pulled me back into the conversation. Christian speaks very highly of you, she began. We did talk about how unconventional it was for him to hire his IT director as his assistant. I nodded with a nervous chuckle. It surprised me too, honestly. She smiled again. With this upcoming business trip, I thought it would be wise to meet. Christian doesn't usually keep assistants long, let alone invite them to dinner. You must be different. I glanced at Christian. The expression on his face said this dinner hadn't been his idea. My son lacks dedication to the company, Anna continued. It's frustrating to watch someone so intelligent waste his potential. Some days I regret placing the company in his hands. It's like he prefers to spend time doing anything but running it properly. She went on, criticizing his leadership, his decisions, his character, like she was giving a full report on his failures. And I don't know what came over me. But before I could stop myself, the words left my mouth. That's not true, I said firmly, shaking my head. He may not be perfect, but I've seen him care. He does try. You just refuse to see it. The room fell completely silent. Even I was stunned by my own voice. Christian's POV. Oh no, Alex. His hands flew to his mouth as if he could take back what he had just said. The look on his face? Absolute panic. The room went silent. Uncomfortably silent. I couldn't recall a single moment in my life when someone had dared to interrupt my mother, let alone speak out of turn. Care to elaborate? She finally said, her voice cool and sharp. You could hear the tension in Alex's breath as he stumbled for words. I didn't mean. He tripped over every syllable. No disrespect, I just didn't think. She said nothing, but her eyes told him she wasn't going to let it slide. She expected an answer, and she was going to get one. Alex exhaled slowly, steadying himself. I've been with this company for 3 years now. And to be completely honest, he looked directly at her. Christian can be incredibly difficult. My jaw nearly hit the table. I mean, I'm not sure I'll still have a job tomorrow, kind of difficult. He's hot-headed, quick to anger, and for some reason insists on keeping the office cold enough to freeze time. Brad snorted a laugh but tried to hide it. I shot him a glare that said, don't you dare. He's late to meetings, even the ones he schedules, and doesn't always consider how his decisions affect everyone else. Alex? I tried to cut in, but my mother lifted her hand. Let him finish. She was actually listening. Closely. Dear heavens, please let there be a but coming soon. But, Alex said, finally, as strange as it sounds, he also has redeeming qualities. A few? That's comforting. We didn't exactly start off well. In fact, he overheard me complaining about him over the phone the day we met, and still offered me the job. He continued, more composed now. He's asked about my concerns. He's brought me into projects I never thought I'd be trusted with. And to my surprise, I've learned a lot. Watch your language, my mother interrupted as Alex caught himself almost saying something he shouldn't. Yes, ma'am, he nodded. What I mean is, Christian may not be the most conventional boss, but he cares. He's trying. It's clear he wants to move the company forward. He paused and met my mother's gaze. So, no, I don't think you made a mistake in choosing him. You don't strike me as the kind of woman who does. I sat there, completely frozen. I couldn't look away from him. And for the first time in my life, my mother was also at a loss for words. She just stared at Alex. I had no idea what was going through her head, but I prayed it wasn't violent. I'm sorry, Alex said quickly, as if hoping an apology would undo the possible damage. No apology necessary, my mother replied. And then, shockingly, she smiled. Brad and I turned toward her in disbelief. It was the first genuine smile we'd seen from her in years. Dinner carried on. Surprisingly, she didn't aim any more sharp comments at anyone. Instead, she dove into the long-winded history of the company. Alex listened. Really listened. He asked about the company's origins, about her startup struggles, about how she built it all. My mother looked like she genuinely enjoyed having someone interested in her story. Brad and I, on the other hand, had heard it all more times than we could count. Usually, I would have found an excuse to disappear the moment the story started, but tonight, I stayed. Eventually, the evening came to a close. Brad had an early meeting, and Alex and I had a flight to catch. Before we left, My mother did something so unexpected that I wondered if we were secretly on a reality prank show. She gave Alex a hug. Brad and I glanced around, half expecting cameras to pop out and someone to shout, "Surprise!" Then she kissed us both on the cheek and walked us to the front steps. Steve had already brought the cars around. "Come visit again soon," she said softly as Alex and Brad walked ahead. "We have more to discuss." I nodded, a little confused by what she meant. But something about her tone made me curious. As soon as Alex and I were inside the car and pulling away from the gates, I turned to him. "You almost got us kicked out of the family tonight," I said, not entirely joking. He looked away but nodded. "Yeah, that could have gone 1,000 different ways." "True. But you did well." He turned to look at me, his face lighting up at the unexpected praise. "What do you say we take a little drive before heading back? We can spare an hour." He bit the inside of his cheek like he always did when he was overthinking. But after a moment he nodded. And just like that, I couldn't stop smiling. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.